The autumn leaves fell like copper coins around the park bench where Maya sat every Thursday afternoon, sketchbook in hand. She came to draw the old fountain, its weathered stone angels frozen mid-dance for 100 years. But lately, she'd been drawing something else entirely. The man who arrived at precisely 3:17 each week, always carrying a worn leather journal and a takeaway coffee. He'd sit on the opposite bench, write for exactly 43 minutes, then leave. Maya had never spoken to him. She'd simply memorized the angle of his jawline, the way his dark hair caught the afternoon light, the concentrated furrow of his brow when he was lost in thought. Today, a gust of wind tore a page from her sketchbook. It tumbled across the pathway, and before she could chase it, a hand reached down and caught it. His hand. "Is this yours?" He stood before her, holding her drawing, a portrait of him rendered in careful graphite lines. Maya's face burned. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. It's not weird, It's beautiful." He sat beside her, studying the sketch with genuine wonder. "Is this really how you see me?" She couldn't lie. "Yes." He smiled, and it transformed his entire face. "I'm Elliot." "Maya." "I know." At her surprised look, he opened his journal, turning it to face her. Page after page of words, not prose but poetry. And every poem, she slowly realized, was about the girl who came to draw the fountain. The way her hair escaped its messy bun in golden strands. The intensity in her eyes when she was lost in her art. The grace of her hands as they moved across paper. "You've been writing about me." "For 3 months," he admitted, a shy smile playing at his lips. "Every Thursday. I kept trying to work up the courage to talk to you, but the words only came out right on paper." Maya laughed, the sound bright in the autumn air. "I've been drawing you for 3 months. Every Thursday, telling myself next week I'd say hello." They sat in the fading golden light, sharing their secret collection of observed moments. How he'd noticed she took her tea with honey, how she'd memorized the way he tapped his pen when searching for the right word. Two artists, two strangers, who had somehow been creating a shared love story without ever speaking a word. "This is ridiculous," Maya said, still smiling. "We're ridiculous." "Completely," Elliot agreed. Then softer. "Would you like to get coffee? Actual coffee, where we sit on the same bench?" "I'd love that." As they stood to leave, the last rays of sun broke through the clouds, bathing the park in liquid gold. Elliot reached for her hand, tentative, hopeful. Maya took it, feeling the familiar, unfamiliar warmth of his palm against hers. "Can I tell you something?" he asked as they walked. "What's that?" He stopped, turning to face her with those eyes she'd tried so many times to capture in charcoal. "I was going to title my collection, The Girl by the Fountain. But I think I've found a better name now." "What's that?" "Kisses of Gold." He gestured to the autumn leaves raining down around them, then to the honey-colored light, then to her. "Because that's what I've been hoping for. And because that's what this moment feels like." Maya rose on her toes and kissed him, gentle and certain, as the golden leaves swirled around them like a blessing. When they pulled apart, both laughing breathlessly, she whispered, "That's the perfect title." They walked out of the park hand in hand, leaving behind 2 empty benches and a fountain full of stone angels who, if one looked closely, might have been smiling. And every Thursday after, they returned together, not as silent observers, but as the love story they'd been writing and drawing all along. The coffee shop Elliot chose was small and warm, with mismatched furniture and the smell of cinnamon in the air. They claimed a corner table by the window, where the afternoon light still held its golden quality, and talked until the sun set and the streetlights flickered on. Maya learned that Elliot taught literature at the community college, that he'd moved to the city 2 years ago after his mother passed away, that he wrote poetry because it was the only way he knew how to make sense of the world. Elliot discovered that Maya worked as a medical illustrator by day, that she'd lost her father when she was 12, that she came to the park because it was where her parents had gotten engaged. "That's why you draw the fountain," Elliot said softly, understanding blooming in his eyes. Every Thursday was their day, Maya explained. After he died, my mom would bring me here every week. We'd sit and remember him together. When she passed away 3 years ago, I just kept coming. It felt like keeping them alive somehow. Elliot reached across the table and laced his fingers through hers. I'm sorry. Don't be. I think they'd like this. She smiled through the tears that threatened. My dad used to say that love leaves traces in places. That's why some spots feel magical. The fountain, it's soaked in their happiness. And now maybe. She trailed off, suddenly shy. Now maybe it's soaked in ours too, Elliot finished. They stayed until the barista apologetically announced closing time. Outside, the night air was crisp and full of possibility. Can I walk you home? Elliot asked. Maya lived in a 4th-floor walk-up in a converted brownstone, the kind of building with creaky stairs and neighbors who cooked fragrant meals that scented the entire hallway. At her door they lingered, neither wanting the evening to end. I have something for you, Elliot said, pulling a folded page from his journal. I wrote this today before everything. Maya unfolded it carefully. The poem was titled 317, and it began, she arrives like clockwork, like the seasons, like faith. I time my heartbeat to her arrival, count the minutes until I can pretend not to watch her hands move across paper, creating worlds I'm not invited into. Yet, Maya repeated, looking up at him. I always hoped there'd be a yet, he admitted. She kissed him again, longer this time, and when they parted she pressed her sketchbook into his hands. Then you should have this. Page 47. Inside he found a drawing different from the portraits. This one showed the park from above. 2 benches facing each other across the path, 2 figures rendered in silhouette. Between them, invisible lines connected them like constellations, like the red string of fate. At the bottom, in her careful handwriting, the space between us is not empty. It's full of all the words we haven't said yet. Maya, he breathed. I drew that 5 weeks ago, she said. I knew then. I just didn't know how to cross that space. And now there is no space. She smiled. Now we're writing the same story. The weeks that followed felt like living inside a dream painted in gold. They returned to the park every Thursday, but now they sat together, sharing a single bench. Elliot would read his poems aloud while Maya sketched, and sometimes she'd draw them both, 2 figures that finally occupied the same space on the page. But it was the small moments between Thursdays that Maya treasured most. The Tuesday when Elliot appeared at her apartment with takeout and a first edition of her favorite poetry collection he'd found at an estate sale. The Saturday morning when she dragged him to a life drawing class and he gamely attempted to sketch the model, producing something that made them both dissolve into laughter. The Wednesday evening when they got caught in the rain and took shelter in a bookshop, emerging an hour later with armfuls of books and rain-wet hair, kissing on the corner under her umbrella. 1 month after their first conversation, Elliot invited Maya to a poetry reading at the college. She sat in the back row of the small auditorium, surrounded by students and faculty, as he took the stage. Tonight I want to share something new, he began, his eyes finding hers in the crowd. A collection I've been working on for the past few months. It's called Kisses of Gold. He read poem after poem, each one a captured moment from their Thursday afternoons. The audience was silent, transfixed. But Maya heard something more in the words. She heard the before and the after. She heard the longing in the early poems, the hope in the middle ones, and in the final piece written just that morning, she heard joy so pure it made her chest ache. When he finished, the applause was thunderous. But Elliot only looked at her. Afterward, as they walked back to her apartment through streets glazed with lamplight, Maya was quiet. Did you hate it? Elliot asked, worried. I should have asked before sharing such personal. I'm going to paint you, Maya interrupted. Not just sketch. A real painting. Something big and messy and full of color. Yeah. You've written me into existence with words. I want to do the same for you, but with paint. She stopped walking, turning to face him. I want to show you the way I see you. Not just your face but everything. The gold. The gold. That's what you are to me, she said simply. Everything about you catches the light. Elliot pulled her close, and they stood there on the sidewalk as the city moved around them, two people who'd found each other in the smallest of spaces. The gap between Thursday afternoons, the distance across a park path, the silence before a first hello. I love you, Elliot whispered into her hair. Is it too soon to say that? Maya pulled back just enough to see his face, and she was smiling. You've been saying it for 3 months. I've been drawing it for just as long. This is just the first time we're using the actual words. I love you, he said again, testing the words in the open air, feeling their weight and truth. I love you too, Maya replied. In graphite and gold. In silence and poetry. In every possible way. They kissed beneath the streetlight, and somewhere across the city, in a park growing dark and quiet, a fountain full of stone angels kept their eternal watch, holding space for all the love stories that bloomed in their shadow. And every Thursday after Maya and Elliot returned, their benches no longer opposite but side by side, their story no longer written in secret but lived in full color, in all the shades of gold that love can be. Winter arrived with unexpected gentleness, dusting the city in soft snow rather than burying it. Maya and Elliot still kept their Thursday tradition, though now they bundled in scarves and brought thermoses of hot chocolate. The fountain froze over, its angels wearing caps of ice and snow, but the bench, their bench now, remained their sanctuary. It was on a particularly cold Thursday in January that Elliot arrived at the park carrying not just his journal, but a large portfolio case. What's that? Maya asked, making room for him beside her. I did something, he said, and she could hear the nervousness in his voice. Something I've never done before. I illustrated my poems. Maya's eyes widened. You drew. Terribly, he laughed. But you inspired me. You show people how to see the invisible blood vessels, bone structure, the architecture of the body. I wanted to try. To show rather than just tell. He opened the portfolio with shaking hands. Inside were dozens of pages, each one containing a poem alongside simple line drawings. They were awkward and earnest, the work of someone just learning to translate vision into mark-making. But they were also achingly sincere. He'd drawn the park, the fountain, the benches. He'd drawn her hands holding a pencil. He'd drawn what love looked like to him. Not perfect but honest. Elliot, Maya whispered, tears springing to her eyes. These are beautiful. They're amateur at best. No, they're vulnerable. That's better than beautiful. She looked up at him. You really see me in these. Not the me I try to project. The real me. That's the only version I've ever seen, he said softly. Maya closed the portfolio carefully and set it aside. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a wrapped package. I was going to wait until your birthday, but I think now is the right time. Elliot unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a leather-bound book, hand-stitched, with thick watercolor paper. On the first page, Maya had painted a portrait of him. Not realistic but impressionistic, all warm golds and ambers and ochres, as if he were made of captured sunlight. On the facing page, she'd written in her elegant script, For Elliot, who taught me that silence can be conversation, and distance can be intimacy, and 3 months of Thursdays can contain a lifetime. The rest of the pages were blank. It's for your poems, Maya explained. The ones you're still going to write. I'll paint as you go if you want. We can make something together. Your words, my colors. Elliot couldn't speak. He pulled her close, the book pressed between them, and kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. How did I get this lucky? He finally managed. You showed up, Maya said simply. Every Thursday at 3:17. You were constant when everything else in the world felt uncertain. They sat in the cold, wrapped in each other and in shared silence, watching the snow begin to fall again. A group of children ran past, laughing and throwing snowballs. An elderly couple walked by arm in arm, the woman pointing at the frozen fountain with delight. The world turned, the seasons changed, but this moment, this golden perfect moment, felt suspended in time.